I just got back from watching Intimate Apparel at the Donmar warehouse in London, and I wanted to just give some first thoughts and impressions. First of all, this was a great show. This really was fantastic. And I went into it not knowing anything about it. I just love the Donmar warehouse, and when they announced this year's season, I'm pretty sure I just bought tickets to everything. So that's why I was there. And then the show began and characters started appearing, and I was like, this is fun, because one of the actors or actresses, Faith Amole, I've seen before. I've seen her in Standing at the Sky's Edge, and thought that she was absolutely standout fantastic in that at the National Theatre. And so to see her again in this was a pleasant surprise, because I really think that she is wonderful. She's got real a presence and a charisma on stage that I think just sort of captures you no matter what role she seems to be playing. But I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit here. The show itself, what's it about? What's the deal? Essentially, it's a story of a woman who sews clothing for a living. She is very handy with her work. She's extremely good at what she does. She's been saving up, and she receives some correspondence from a guy who's working at the Panama Canal, or the Panama Gap, I guess, or whatever you would call it at the time. And he is sort of looking to court her. And the twist in the story, I guess, initially, and I won't give spoilers for the sort of second half stuff, but the twist is that she actually can't read the letters, and so she needs to employ the help of some of her friends, some of her clients, the people that pay her to create clothing, create these intimate pieces of clothing, to help her read the letters and to help her respond. And they correspond via the help of her friends, and the story progresses from there. Now, I thought maybe 20 minutes in, I thought, this is going to be one of those stories that's all about her falling in love and then it ends tragically, and that's that, right? Like, that's going to be the whole thing. And it does feel like that to some extent. Like, it feels like one of those plays that is so simple. Like, there were 6 characters, right? Just 6. And there was no one else on stage at any time. There were very few props involved. It felt like just one of those classic stripped back plays that you kind of can tell where they're going. They're going to end with like, oh, someone's gonna hit their wife, or someone's gonna walk out on their family, or someone's gonna kill themselves, or like it's always those sorts of classic very human things, right, that you see crop up in plays like this. And this play was no stranger to those, I'll say. But I didn't mind it. I didn't think that it was sort of too straight for my liking. I didn't think that it was too cliched or too stereotypical. I thought that it played with the subject matter well. And as much as you really sort of know where it's going, the tragic, the fate of it all, the destiny, the inability to kind of get away from that inevitability of it all was fine. It was good. It was apt, I would say. And I thought the cast really did a great job of portraying it. I thought Faith Amole's performance was really phenomenal, as I've said. But I also want to give credit to everyone on the stage. Samira Wiley, I thought, did a fantastic job as well. Really, really enjoyed her performance. And I think that there's a world where performed slightly less electrically, I would have walked out of it feeling a bit less positive about the show. But because they were all so great, I was standing up for that standing ovation at the end, and really felt that they nailed it. I think that the way that it was staged was also pretty perfect. The main sort of pieces of architecture on the stage are a bed, a single bed, And then there's a sewing machine, and there's like a privacy screen, and that's more or less it. You just have the bed, the sewing machine, the privacy screen as the only real props. Maybe like a suitcase here or there. It was also fun because the Donmar is a theatre that I've been to many times now, and I love the Donmar so much. It's so good. Probably my favourite theatre in London. I adore the Donmar. And this was one of the first times where I felt like I was not at the Donmar, which might sound a bit odd, but I was almost reminded of something I saw in LA, actually. I can't recall its name right now, but I saw this one show that had a similar kind of thematic, story-wise, it was sort of similar situation. And in that show, they had a sort of walkway above, and they were doing some stuff on the walkway, and then they had the sort of lower main section of the stage, and there was some music in the show. It wasn't a musical, but there was some music in the show, and they would be sort of singing in that lower section and stuff like that. And I was really transported into that theatre in LA while watching this, weirdly, just because it had a very loosely similar sort of structure, which is nothing new in the Donmar. It's maybe partly was contributed to by the lighting, maybe it was partly the subject matter. I thought the lighting was fantastic, actually, through the whole show. I thought that they really nailed the ambient vibe and the moments where it would kind of go to a monologue or a moment of stillness, and you'd get this sort of creeping blue light that would start to fade in and then become stronger, and then it would snap back to the reality of a scene or the following scene or what have you. I thought it was really, really solid. And I also was a fan of how they presented the music. I think that the music, both what was sung and then also the band playing behind, was really fantastic. I enjoyed that a lot. There was one choice that I wasn't a huge fan of, and it was that on the privacy screen, they projected a sort of silhouette, almost like you could see somebody's shadow being cast on the privacy screen. You could see them sort of semi-translucently moving around. And it happened a few times where they did that, and they also projected the writing from some of the letters that were being sent back and forth. And they did that on the base of the walkway that was sort of above head height for the characters on the main stage. And then at some points in the show, they also did a ceiling down projection of swirling words and letters and things on the floor. And it just felt a bit cheap for me. I think that the show was so good, and it was so sharp, and it was so punchy, I guess. Like, it really was precise with its approach, that to then just sort of like project swirling sentences to represent the characters' thoughts swirling around their head or something, it felt like that wasn't needed. I think that they were using projection because they could, a little bit more than they were using projection because that specific choice would elevate the show or add to the show in a really meaningful way. So it just didn't work for me. And it's a very, very small gripe, but it's unfortunate just because everything else was spectacular as far as I was concerned. I just found myself in those moments being like, yeah, this is just fine, I guess. And I think maybe this is just a very sort of subjective Milo opinion when it comes to theatre in general, because I'm trying to think if there's ever been a projection situation that I've seen in a show that I've really adored. And I don't really think there has been. There have been a few things that have done it in a somewhat interesting manner, but I think often it just feels like an actual practical prop of some kind would have done the job significantly better. like playing with light and stuff like that, I'm always going to be a fan of. I think an example, if I recall, would have been the new production, the Jamie Lloyd production of Sunset Boulevard, when I saw that at the Savoy, I think it was. And yeah, the light usage in that show was great. But those moments, I think, especially when it comes to projection, are sort of fewer and further between, that it's really additive. So that was just something that I personally observed and thought, not to my taste. But outside of that, I had a great time. I think that the cast is spectacular. I think that there were a couple of empty seats, not too many. I mean, the Donmar's a small theatre, but there were a couple. So that might mean that there's some availability for you to go see it. And this is one that I would wholeheartedly recommend. I had a great time. I think you will as well. If you like a Blues for an Alabama Sky situation, if you like a Streetcar Named a Streetcar Named Desire situation, if you like those sorts of plays, then you're going to have a blast with this one, I think. And it's being played by some fantastic actors. So that's my recommendation on my first impressions on seeing the wonderful Intimate Apparel today. And I hope you enjoy it just as much as I did.